Every legend starts somewhere, but not every hero gets the spotlight. For him, the NFL dream didn't begin with cameras flashing or crowds cheering his name. He wasn't a top draft pick, nor was he hyped as the next big thing. In fact, when draft day came, his name wasn't called at all. Undrafted and unnoticed, he signed a rookie contract quietly, filling a practice squad spot that most fans never even heard about. While the league focused on its rising stars, he worked in the shadows. First in practice, running drills to sharpen the skills of the starters. Then on special teams, making tackles no one celebrated and blocking for plays that everyone quickly forgot. But if there was one thing that set him apart, it was his work ethic. First to arrive at the facility, last to leave. Always the one grinding through extra drills, lifting heavier, running faster, and pushing himself past exhaustion. Coaches noticed his effort, though it never translated into starting positions or big contracts. To them, he was reliable, a player who did his job and never complained. The media ignored him. Fans didn't know his name. But inside the locker room, he earned something far more valuable than fame, respect. Teammates relied on him for advice. Rookies looked up to him as an example of how to survive in the league when the odds were stacked against you. He wasn't chasing the spotlight. He was doing the dirty work that kept the team running smoothly. And yet, as each season passed, it seemed like the world would never recognize his efforts. He remained a background figure, blending into the fabric of the team, while others took the glory. Still, he never lost focus. Because he knew something most others didn't. Heroes aren't always the ones in the headlines. Sometimes they're the ones who show up every day, ready to give everything for a team that may never say thank you. But his time was coming. And when the moment arrived, it wouldn't just change a game. It would change NFL history forever. In every great victory, there are moments that never make the highlight reel. For him, those moments were everything. Game after game, season after season, he delivered in the shadows, making crucial blocks that allowed his teammates to score, delivering bone-crushing tackles that stopped opposing drives cold, and hustling on every special teams play like the championship depended on it. No one in the crowd chanted his name. The commentators never mentioned his effort. But inside the locker room, everyone knew. He was the glue holding the team together. There was the time when a late-game fumble seemed inevitable, but his hustle on special teams saved the possession. The next week, it was a block that went unnoticed on a game-winning touchdown. Quiet moments that changed the outcomes of games, but were quickly overshadowed by highlight catches and flashy touchdowns. Teammates respected him for it. Coaches trusted him to execute plays without needing the spotlight. And while the media focused on rising stars and record-breaking performances, he stayed consistent, always ready, always reliable. But behind the professionalism, the pressure weighed on him. Being overlooked takes a toll, especially when the work you pour your soul into goes unnoticed by the outside world. There were nights when the frustration crept in, moments when he questioned why he kept pushing so hard for a league that seemed to forget he existed. Why am I still doing this? Yet, every time doubt whispered in his ear, he remembered why he started. It was never about the fame. It was about the love for the game, the brotherhood of the locker room, and the unspoken pride of knowing he had done his job to perfection, even if no one else noticed. Still, deep down, a part of him hoped for a moment, a chance to prove, not just to himself, but to the world, that he was more than a background player. And when that moment came, it would change everything. Every unsung hero eventually faces a moment that defines their legacy. His came when no one expected it. The season had been brutal. Injuries piled up, and the team's playoff hopes hung by a thread. With their star players sidelined, the coaching staff turned to those who had spent their careers in the shadows, the players who had done the work without fanfare or recognition. This was his chance. It was the final game of the regular season. The stakes couldn't have been higher. Win, and the team would clinch a playoff spot. Lose, and their season was over. With just 2 minutes remaining, the team trailed by 3 points. The stadium buzzed with tension, and every fan had their eyes locked on the usual stars. But the game doesn't always belong to the stars. On a critical third down, the quarterback was pressured, scrambling for options as the pocket collapsed. Every receiver was covered, and the defense closed in fast. Then, at the perfect moment, the forgotten hero made his move. He cut across the field, finding a gap in the defense where no one thought to look. The quarterback, out of options, threw a desperate pass in his direction. The stadium held its breath. He caught it, not just a routine catch, but a leaping, full-extension grab, snatching the ball inches from the ground while taking a brutal hit from a defender. He held on as the crowd erupted in disbelief. First down. The drive stayed alive. But his heroics didn't end there. With seconds left on the clock, the team lined up for a game-winning field goal attempt. The snap had to be perfect. The hold had to be steady. And the kick blocked. Except it wasn't. Because as the defense surged forward, he threw the block that saved the kick. The ball sailed through the uprights. Game over. The team was going to the playoffs. Fans celebrated the kicker, praised the quarterback, and hailed the coach's strategy. But in the locker room, the real hero wasn't forgotten. His teammates knew the truth. Without him, there would have been no victory. No highlight reels captured his block. No headlines bore his name. But deep down, he didn't need them. He had delivered when it mattered most. The playoff run was short-lived. Despite their miraculous win, the team fell in the next round. The stars got their applause, the coaches received their accolades, and reporters wrote stories about strategy and perseverance. But for him, there were no interviews, no standing ovations. The next season arrived, and with it came new recruits. Fresh talent with bigger contracts and brighter potential. Coaches, focused on developing the future, began to overlook the veteran who had quietly saved their season. His snaps grew fewer, his role diminished, and soon he found himself back on the bench. The locker room still respected him. Teammates knew what he had done, and younger players often approached him for advice. But in the world of professional football, respect without recognition doesn't keep you on the field. The end came quietly. No retirement announcement, no press conference. Just a meeting with the coach, a handshake, and the words every athlete dreads. We're going in a different direction. Suddenly, the player who had given everything, sacrificed his body, played through pain, and delivered when the team needed him most, was left without a team, without a contract, and without a farewell. There were no calls from other franchises, no second chances. The league had moved on, and he was left with memories of moments that had mattered more than anyone else realized. His final game? A regular season matchup where he played just a few snaps, blocking for a running back who would later credit his success to a well-timed assist. The cameras never caught it. The commentators never mentioned his name. He left the stadium the same way he had spent most of his career, in silence. But while the world forgot, his impact remained in the hearts of those who knew him. The teammates who had seen his sacrifices, the coaches who had trusted him in critical moments, and the fans who didn't realize that, without him, their team's greatest triumphs might never have happened. His career didn't end with a roar. It ended the same way it had begun, with quiet dignity and relentless determination. Years passed, and the league moved forward, as it always does. New stars emerged, breaking records, signing massive contracts, and filling highlight reels with jaw-dropping plays. But in locker rooms across the NFL, his name quietly lived on. Teammates who had watched him work tirelessly began sharing his story with younger players. Coaches told rookies about the quiet veteran who showed up early, left late, and never complained, no matter how often he was overlooked. His lessons became part of the team's culture. Work hard, stay humble, and be ready when your moment comes. He never sought recognition, but his influence reached further than any headline could. Players who once watched him from the sidelines credited their success to his quiet mentorship. Some called him before big games just to thank him for teaching them how to handle pressure. And then, something unexpected happened. During a halftime ceremony years after his retirement, the team honored its unsung heroes, those whose contributions had been forgotten by the public but never by the organization. His name was called. The crowd didn't erupt like it would for a Hall of Famer, but those who knew the game understood. His former teammates rose to their feet, and coaches who had long since moved on returned just to shake his hand. "You saved our season," one coach whispered as they hugged, "and we never forgot." For the first time, the spotlight found him, but true to his nature, he kept his speech short. "I didn't play for recognition. I played for the love of the game, for my teammates, and for the moments that defined us as a team. And if that's all I'm remembered for, that's enough for me." His legacy wasn't about stats or trophies. It was about resilience, sacrifice, and the understanding that true greatness doesn't always come with applause. He was the forgotten hero of the NFL. But in the hearts of those who mattered most, he would never be forgotten. If his story moved you, share this video to honor those unsung heroes who never ask for recognition but deserve it the most. And don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories of NFL greatness.